Welcome to the channel Dr.Caos. Today we will learn one of the concepts of object-oriented programming, which is very well known as the class. Now, the definition of a class would be it's the combination of all your data members and member function in one place to create a real-world entity. Now, this is quite a booky definition. I would like to give you a brief definition so you can clear up your concepts. Now, you can define a class as a description of a real world entity. So you can say that a class is where you describe an object to create one. Okay, so create one object, you describe it inside the class. Now, to give you an example, for example, a computer. A computer consists of a motherboard, RAM, hard drive, CPU, and many much components, alright? And combining all those components, you create a computer, right? So the class is basically the same. You just use class, the name of the object that you're trying to create, and inside the class you describe the object. That's it. So here I've got in class. So this is the syntax of a class. Class name, open brackets, closing brackets, and in the closing brackets you put a semicolon. So that would be the syntax of a class. Now, how do you describe an object? You cannot just type writing like a computer is whatever. You cannot do that. You have to write it in a programming language. So before you do that, you need to know what is access specifier. Now, I'm not going to explain you what is access specifier in this video, so if you don't know it, check out other videos on YouTube, or I will have my own tomorrow, so you can check that out as well. So there are three types of access specifier: private, public, and protected. So the private one you use to declare all your data members in one place. So there is where you declare your data members. So there you go, private and public. Now protected is not used as much as these two. Protected is mostly used when you use inheritance. I've got a video also on inheritance, so if you want to check it out, there's a video in my channel. So here, as I told you, in private is where you declare all your data members. For example, if I'm taking a class of an employee consists of, let's say, an employee ID, a name, an employee has a name, right, and a job title. So for example, I can type in here integer empid. Alright, I can type in character name, and let's say one thing more would be character, let's say job title. Alright, so what I've done is declared all the things that an employee may have in one place. Obviously you can create a class without having all that. You can just create by an employee ID, but what you're doing is creating a real world entity. An employee exists in the reality, right? There are many employees. So this is a basic description of the employee. An employee consists and always has an ID, a name, and a job title. So that's something to make sure that you have this concept clear. Now you may ask if I can declare this integer empid in public. Yeah, you can do that. But the thing is, we declare all this in private, so these variables or data members cannot be accessed outside the class. What we are saying here that we don't want any other person to access these data members. That's why we declare it inside private, so no one can detect it. For example, let's say Facebook. You have got some pictures that are private that only few people can see, and public that everyone can see, right? So that's what this is doing. You wouldn't like if Facebook would have published your private photo in public. So that would be something to keep in mind. Alright, so this is what we are doing, is we are declaring all our data members in private, and we always do that. Now, as I told you, this is not a video on access specifier. You can check others out, or I will have mine one by tomorrow, so you can check that as well. So here we write our member functions. Now what do we mean by that? Any function will do. For example, if I was adding two numbers, so I would say function name and pass two variables and add inside it. Any task any task that you want to do inside the class is performed inside public. Let's say I want to accept the employee ID. I want to save a name, or sorry, an ID in employee ID. So let's say I would say void accept. So as I told you, you need to write the function. So any function, you can create your own function. There's nothing difficult in that. So I say cout, and let's say enter emp ID and cin emp ID and semicolon. So what we are doing here, we have written a member function to accept an employee ID. So that's what it's doing. So this is an entire class. It starts over here, it's end over here, and it's all about an employee. We have described an employee in brief, and we have accepted his employee ID. So now what we do, we have actually created an object which is employee. So what we are doing here in main is where you create an object. So all you do is copy the name of the class and paste it inside main and give a name to the object. Let's say emp. I want to give the name of the object as emp. So I have declared employee emp. So now emp over here is an object. So what if I wanted to call the class, right? So I would say emp dot accept. Alright, I'm gonna call the accept function over here, and I put the brackets in the front because this is a function, as I told you, and semicolon. Now I just run the program, and you will say enter employee ID. I would say 1, and the program would exit. Alright, so what we have done here is created an object of the class employee. So this is employee, right? We created one employee, okay, and accepted the employee ID. So that's what we are doing, creating an object. Now I can have multiple employees in my company. So if I want to have an array of employees, means multiple employees, I can have up to 20, 50, 100, whatever, how many employees I want. So basically that is a class. A class is where you describe your object, and then in main you just create the object, as many objects as you want, and do whatever you want to do with the functions. That's what actually a class is. So I hope that I have cleared your concepts about class, and I hope you like this video. So rate, comment and subscribe. Thank you very much.